Hey, folks, welcome back to the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about how we game. I'm Carlos Rafael.
Michael Lorenzo.
Daniel Erdzik.
Rob Childers.
And today, we're going to give you our impressions of Daimyo, Rebirth of the Empire.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about how we game.
So where does the game take place, Rob?
Takes place in post-apocalyptic, is it Japan officially? Do we know if it's Japanese setting?
I don't know if it's official or not, but it appears to be something along that line, yeah.
Japanese, Asian continent. And there are, is it 6 islands?
Yes.
6 islands. And you're vying for control of the 6 islands through the use of governors, which give you political power on the islands. I forget what
You got farms and radio towers.
You're building buildings to get influence on those islands.
Yep.
And you have the assassins. What are the assassins officially?
Shadows.
Shadows. Yes, the shadows are there to assassinate the other players' governors.
But they also influence as well.
They give you a little bit of influence,
bit.
but they take influence away. That's the main thing for them. And then you also have the relics that you're building that can give you influence on the islands, too.
There you go.
You're using your scavenger piece for the relics.
To collect the relics.
Correct. I mean, the whole point of the game is to gain as many of those points as possible for the end game and build up your empire, hence the name.
Right. Rebirth.
Yep. Each round, at the end of the round, you're going to score influence points based off of your control of the different islands within that archipelago of islands.
Correct.
I'm trying to remember, is it only the leader of that island that gets points? I believe there's a sharing.
First and second place.
First and second.
That's how far it went, first and second.
Each of the 5 rounds?
Yes, every round, at the end of every round, whoever's in control of each island, first and second place, will get points, influence points.
Yep, and you're taking your governors, putting them on the islands. The governors not only give you influence on those different islands, but they also pool resources whenever you take the resource action.
Correct.
So each round, you're going to take different actions on the island. I think the first one is the blue action, which in my mind, it's more of a logistical type action, right? It has to do with drawing cards. It has to do
Collecting
with
storage space.
Getting storage space for your relics. You're popping actions off the center island.
Correct.
With the blue one.
Yep.
And gaining control of the first player marker.
Yep.
Also, if you can max it out, every time that you increase that, you would gain influence points on the track.
That's right.
Then you got a couple of green actions that you're able to take. The first green action, if I remember correctly, it's the gear symbol, and that has to do with moving is it your scavenger or your governors?
Scavenger, I believe.
I think that's the second
That's the second
green.
one.
Second green.
But that's okay. We can still talk about it now. And that is your scavenger. That's when you can move the scavenger to get pieces of the relics to put together so you can get all 4 pieces to gain more influence on an island.
Yep.
As well as pay to replace a couple of them and move them into the black market.
Right, you can
And
cycle
Yep.
the relics, because
Right.
there are different relics on each and every island. Each
Right, that are
island has its
randomly
own
drawn from a bag. Yeah, and you can also buy from the black market. So
Correct.
you get 2 of those, 2
Right.
complete sets of those actions.
Yep, that gear action lets you mill the bag of tiles from relics to kind of get rid of the ones you're not looking for,
Yep.
send those to the black market, and then find the ones you are looking for.
Right.
Right.
And then the other green action was what you were talking about. Wherever you have farms or governors in place, you'll collect the resource at the locations they're at. That's one of the most simple actions out of the 5 that you can do is that one, because you're just putting your die there and collecting for the most part, unless you have bonus actions, which we'll talk about later.
Yep,
Right.
which come from your hand or from the
Right.
build, which is the last action. So you had the blue action, 2 green actions, and the next set of actions are red actions. The first of the 2 red actions is the getting new
Recruits.
workers or recruits.
Yep.
Which is where you pay rice off of a wheel,
Yes.
the cost wheel.
The cost gradually goes up over a number of times that you're recruiting. It'll go up 1 notch. Sometimes it'll bump the cost up a little bit, and then eventually you can get it to the point where you can pay to have it reset back to a single rice. But you can do that as many times as you
Can afford.
as you can afford. Correct.
You pay rice on that wheel.
Right.
It's usually starting off at like 1 rice bowl.
Yes.
And then the next slot is another rice. And as you go down that wheel, it becomes 2 rice, and then it becomes 3 rice. And then when it wheels back to the top, it's how much gold?
2.
2, I believe, yeah.
And that's when you actually have to pay gold to be able to recruit again, and that goes back to the 1 cost of rice.
Right.
That was a fun wheel to play with, trying to time when you were going to spend rice, and did you have the gold to try to get it across that hump to get that cheaper.
Right.
And again, that's an infinite action. So when you take that action, you can do it, like you say, as many times as you can afford before you have to end your phase. So,
And that's for governors and your shadows.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Well, as far as recruiting, it's either or. And of those shadows, you only get those 3
for the whole game.
for the
whole
entire
game.
game.
Yep.
Yep, we'll
After
talk
you-
some more about those shadows and how they impact the game, because it's very different than what you would think. For me, at least, coming into the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
And most people, once you've played it once or twice, you learn to hold on to them till later in the game
Yeah.
and try and time it for when you're the last player in that round, so you
Yep.
can kind of gain influence real quick to get some more points.
And so the influence points, just to touch on, get bigger as the game goes along. So in round 5, having control of an island is worth more points than in round 1 or 2. So
Correct.
yeah, using those assassins late in the game can really be a tactic to kind of swing things.
That's why they're special. Hey.
Yeah.
The last red action in the bunch is the build action, which allows you to build off of your player board
Yep.
farms, right? So techno farms,
Techno farms, yes.
and then radio towers.
Right.
Right.
Right. So the theme of the game is a post-apocalyptic Japanese feel to it, where people have forgotten what it was to be in the world we live in today.
I think they've taken on the way of the samurai.
Yeah, it's the Bushido code. It's like a twisted form of the Bushido code that they're trying to rebuild.
But it's somewhat of a current time frame. It's,
Right.
It's not like in the past or anything. So, like even on the main board, I looked at it a few times before I even noticed
Yeah, I
it.
didn't
that the guy
notice
in the
either.
front,
The
it's
handlebars.
handlebars instead of
Bicycle.
horns. You know,
Yeah,
and-
bicycle handlebars, yeah.
and he's got a baseball cap on, and so it's kind of altered modern, things that we would have today.
Near future.
They
yeah.
worship our leftovers, right? So like
Yes.
the mighty headphones,
Yep.
right?
Right.
First player token, yep.
You get lots of points for having radio towers up there. So if you can control radio waves, I mean, the people love that. You get more influence. They worship the relics, which are things like old gas station pumps.
Yep.
Right, so like if you're able to build this old gas station pump, all of a sudden you get so much more influence because it's like a monument that they worship in this post-apocalyptic future.
Yep.
So that's the build action, and the last one where you build your techno farms and your radio towers, which then not only move them onto the board, but by moving them off of your player board, you unlock
Uncover, yeah.
actions below them or benefits below them for when you do different actions.
Right, your other actions.
A little chit. Yeah,
You
you move
improve
over.
those actions.
Right.
Right.
So it almost feels like, let's talk about the player board for a minute.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody else got like the little bit of a side?
I say it definitely reminds me
feel?
of Scythe.
I was
yeah.
going to say you got your top and
Your top and your bottom.
top and bottom action kind of, but you can really do them in any order that you want.
Right.
But
Which you
it,
can do it Scythe as well, right?
Yes.
Yes, you can do it in
No,
order in Scythe.
no. Always top,
You have
then
to
bottom.
be top and bottom? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Scythe is always top to bottom. Yeah. But initially, that's as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, this kind of has that Scythe feel. But it was, for me, that was a positive, because,
Yeah.
I mean, I love Scythe, and I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's
Rob
a
does,
touch of familiarity there. Yeah, so that's always nice.
So so kind of even though it really isn't, because you can do them in any order, it was just it was kind of nice to see that. I like that.
It harkened back to it, and it made it easier for me to understand the game. I know when I came into that game, there was a lot of talk about it's going to be a heavy game. There's a lot of different mechanisms, but that, as an example, was they're using mechanisms from other games that I'm already used to playing.
Right.
So I already have the schema behind on how they work, and I was able to really just jump right in and get going.
Yep.
There's a big advantage for people that are into modern board games and know a lot of the mechanics already when they're learning something like this game.
Yeah.
Because I've taught this particular game to people that were not really heavily into games like Scythe and other things like that, and it has quite a learning curve to it for them. But once they got past that, massive information that was coming at them and they played a few rounds, it immediately clicked, because once you learn it, the iconography on the player boards and the boards is so
yeah.
good that
It's well done.
if you try to remember, what does this do? Oh, okay, I remember now, because you can see the picture once you learn the symbols really quick.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of mechanisms in the game, and that's one of the things that I would assume would tend to overwhelm some players at the beginning, because, like you say, it is a big learn. Although once you learn it, each of the mechanisms that they're using are pretty streamlined. They're pretty simple.
Yep.
It's nothing that you haven't seen before if you're a hobby gamer in a lot of other games, and so even some of the mechanisms you may not have seen before, again, they're kind of bare bones versions of those mechanisms. They haven't tried to take anything overboard. Nothing particularly revolutionary. I know some people may see that as a negative, but I found it a little refreshing. I
agree.
I thought it was interesting that there were so many different things they crammed into the game, but they all really seemed to work well together.
And for those players that weren't into those type of games, that once they learned it, they were really excited that they were playing something that seemed extremely complex to them, and then they started looking at other games saying, oh, if I can play this, now I can dive into these other things, because they're learning those different mechanics now. So that's a big positive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Agreed.
I think what I liked about the player board piece is almost like the Scythe feeling, right? Where when you buy a techno farm, right, you're taking that farm off that tile piece, putting it on the board, and it creates a higher cost for building the next farm, right? So it increases the cost of the resources you need to build your farm. But then you get to move that tiled shit in, and this is what I like about it. Unlike Scythe, where the bottom actions are locked in, they are what they are, you get to decide where you take that farm's shit to. So I can take that shit and put it on the blue side. So when I take the blue action, I get to do both of those, the standard blue action plus that extra, or red or green, wherever I want to move it, that customization.
But also inside, when you do upgrades, you're moving those cubes anywhere you want on the bottom and having the cost less than what it normally is. So, I mean, it does have,
some
again,
similarity.
It still has that kind of feel to it. But
It's well, for me, it was that comboing of that bonus action.
Yep.
Right, so like, okay, so if I take that bonus action, I'm going to put it here because I know that when I do the gain resources action, I can now move a governor before I gain resources.
Right.
You know, that's huge.
Big difference from Scythe is when you get your starting board in Scythe, your top and your bottom are locked in, even though they're different from board to board, those combinations, but you're kind of stuck with trying to optimize that the whole time. I see what Carlos is saying definitely is that being able to choose, where do I want to put this bottom with which top?
Right.
Yeah, how do I want to maximize that?
Yeah,
For
because
this game today, I'm going to make it look like this.
Right, because you can change up your strategy. You can have something like, I think out of the 3 or 4 times that I played the game, I took, because you can increase your storage. One of the bonuses when you build one of your buildings is you can increase the storage. And I know a couple of times in my mind I kept thinking, all right, if I can max out my storage early in the game, every time I take that blue action, I'm going to keep getting those victory points over and over again. So a couple of times I would move one of the bonuses you can get. I think it's like 2 extra storage spaces,
believe
or
it's 2.
1.
I think it's 2,
Whatever it is, but I would throw it in that blue section. So I was getting 3 every single time I was taking that action, and it was helping me max out as fast as I could. And then sometimes if you could time it right, also with the 3 chits in the middle, I forget what they're called.
There's a storage increase.
There's a storage
there
increase
too.
there, so you could actually get up to 4 at one time
One
in a
action.
single turn.
And I believe there's a card too
Yes.
that you can recruit that allows you to increase your storage.
Right.
But one thing that I found out through the different playthroughs too that is really good about the game is you say that and it sounds like, oh, you found a route to gain a whole bunch of points and win the game easy. But it doesn't work that way, because
Exactly.
there's so many routes that you can take
A
that
ton.
if you see somebody doing something like that, you can catch them doing something else. You don't have to worry about what that one person, if they're taking advantage, quote unquote, of something, they're not.
Right. Yeah, and even the last time that I changed my strategy a little bit, it still wasn't a runaway. Like, I mean, that's not a winning strategy that you can take. And I think if you're playing with people that, you know, have an understanding of strategy games and they played it maybe a couple of times, there is no runaway game.
No.
Yeah.
You know?
There wasn't a single game that we played where the final wasn't within a few points of each other,
And-
the first and second place.
Right, and the one that I think that we recorded for the channel with Chester playing us, it was his first game. So he was still trying to understand, like, what are the best moves I can make here. So it was more of a learning game for him. But the other 3 of us...
Yeah, we were all clustered
We
really
were all
close.
clustered
I think
right
that was
on
only
top
like a
of each other.
2-point game, wasn't it?
Yeah, first
Yeah.
and second, I think was 2
But
points.
Chester's also a new gamer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You go back and watch that. I don't believe Chester's played Scythe yet,
I don't think so.
Has
yeah.
no?
No,
Man.
that's how new we're talking.
Oh, okay.
And,
So,
and you go back and watch that video. He was thinking through how to make that game happen. He was popping
Yep.
relics and selecting the relic milling action. Right, he was milling relics to try to find the ones that he wanted. He built at one point the most relics on the board.
Yep.
So even someone who is newer to the game can find that one strategy they want to play at, which is why I kind of like engine building games, which has an engine building aspect.
Yeah.
Is although I know I'm not going to win, I'm going to have fun doing my thing.
Right.
And I'm going to do my thing better than anybody else does their thing, whatever that thing is. And I got to see Chester do that in that video.
Yeah.
And in that game that we recorded, I decided that I wasn't going to build relics. I wanted to see what would happen because I built relics in all the other games, and I ended up only 2 points
Right,
behind
right.
Rob with only building the one
Yeah.
relic.
And
so,
I
I mean,
s-
there's
yeah.
different routes to winning easily.
Yeah, and I was going to say I was specifically trying to build relics that particular game, where the other games I wasn't. I was more focused on getting my techno farms and the radio towers out, spending my resources more in that area. So, but yeah, I mean, again, that's
So there's a few different aspects in this game that I want to talk about, right? So I'm going to throw them out there, and then we can talk through some of them. I want to talk about the asymmetric side of the players and how they start the game, right? I want to talk about the different mechanisms in the game, kind of like throughout the turn, right? Because there's there's
Dice drafting.
dice drafting, right? So dice drafting. Then there's action
Selection,
selection,
yeah.
right? And there's,
Hand management,
hand management in there.
set collection.
set collection.
Right, with the relics. I mean, it's just so many little things that just build up into this better form. So let's talk about the asymmetric side of it. So unlike a Blood Rage, where everyone starts with a generic clan, right? We each started with a very different clan. I had a clan that was more focused on like a green clan. They had trees and squirrels and rats, right? And it was all the artwork was very evocative of this tree hugging, loving clan. Mike, if you were to my right of me, if I remember correctly, you had like an electro clan thing going. You know, they had like electricity and almost like a Tesla thing, kind of themed to them.
Right.
But the cards that we got in our hands allowed us. They weren't the same. We
No, they
each
were-
did
yeah.
something different.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. So the specialization that each of the races have is twofold. Number one, each of the leaders, let's call them, I guess,
The heroes.
the clans, the heroes,
In their hand.
has well, we'll start with hand then. Has 3 cards that each the same number, 3, 5, and 7.
Right.
I believe, yes.
3, 5, and 7, I think, are your 3 starters. So we all have a 3, a 5, and a 7, which we can talk about in a little bit. The triggers when we talk about the dice selection and things, but they triggered based on the dice that are on your board. But each one of those is different. So although we still have the same numbers, the 3, the 5, and the 7, each of our 3s and 5s and 7s do something different, which kind of leads to a specialization. The nice thing about that and the ability of your player, which I'll touch on in a
Right.
second, is that it kind of gives you a little bit of a focus on how to play the game. So right now there's 4 leaders, 4 clans. So they give you 4 different styles to start the game. Again, you don't have to stick to that, of course, but they give you kind of a direction to start if you don't know what you want to do or how you want to attack that game. But then again, the other is each of the 4 has its own special ability, and that's triggered when you, is it 13?
13 plus.
And that's on your player
Dice.
board.
Correct.
Right, because
Yep.
our starting hands are different. They all do different things.
Yep.
And then our player board has different abilities on the
Yes.
player board.
Right.
And just for that 13 numbers.
That bonus action.
Right,
when
just
you
that
get, yep.
bonus action. That's good. That's the right term for it. So again, the rest of the boards I think are identical. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's just that clan-specific bonus action, and then the 3 cards have different powers for each person to start the game, yes.
Right.
And that's round 0.
Right.
Right.
We're starting the game at round 0 with different abilities and different actions,
Yep.
different clans, and I like that feeling. Like I'm starting from here, and I got to figure out what to do with this clan. But at the end of each round, we're going to have the ability to purchase multiple cards to add into our hand.
Right.
And those are going to give us those bonus actions each round that change how we play the game.
Yep.
Yep.
So we can now start molding our clan in the direction we want to take them.
Right, and even one of the clans was their special on the board. Their special power was you can play a card for free out of your hand, and I think I played that clan
Yeah, that was
once.
the noble clan, yeah.
Right, and the one time I played them, it definitely changed up my strategy where I was looking to buy more heroes so I could get more of an option to play for free. Whereas playing with some of the other clans, I not that I discarded the hero side of it, I just wasn't as focused on that particular aspect of the game.
Yeah, and I really did enjoy the way we started differently.
Yeah.
That felt good.
Yep.
And then we get into the next part of the round. Right? We're starting the round, and we do the big chucking of the dice. I love dice. And there's these gorgeous dice in here. They're clear, translucent, colorful dice, red, green, and blue. And depending on how many players we have, depends on how many dice we put in. There's going to be a different number of dice based on the colors, right? There's less blue than there are red.
For the 4-player count, there's 3 blue and 5 green and 5 red.
Right. Yeah. So when those dice are out there, first player, he gets first dibs on which dice he's going to draft. And that matters because the color of the dice you draft will determine which action you can take on the board.
Right.
Because we talked about action selection, but to be able to select an action, you first have to draft the die.
Right. As well as the value of the die.
Right.
Because that plays into another aspect of it as far as like being able to play cards and getting that your one player's special ability.
Yeah, because the dice that you draft from the center of the table, the number of pips on that die when you place it on your board is going to allow you to play cards from your hand. Rob talked about our starting hand being a 3, 5, and 7.
Yep.
Right?
I believe so. Yep.
So if I have a 3 card in my hand, I have to have a 3 die placed on my board.
Or some.
Or a sum of 3.
Yeah, you could have a 1 and a 2.
Yep.
Right. As long as my pips sum a certain number, I can then play that 3 card in front of me. So looking at my hand, looking at what I've drafted or what I've selected as heroes, like Mike did, adding to his hand, is going to dictate which dice I want to take because I want to reach a certain number to be able to play this one special card that I needed to play.
Right. As well as you could, I mean, it's not heavy, but there's also a hate drafting side of it where if there's only one high number and I'm looking around at the table and I'm noticing, maybe Dan needs that high number in order to reach that 13 without getting rid of some of his cards, and that's another mechanic as far as changing the value on the die. There is that hate draft. Well, I'm going to take that higher number, even though I may not need it at that time, just to prevent other players from taking, their special action.
And I was going to bring that up too because I had that happen to me quite a bit in the game. Where
on purpose, it was an accident.
No. Well, even if it wasn't, but what I would do is I would buy as many low-value cards from the market at the end of each round. So I would have big hands of cards because there is that mechanic where every card I discard, I can change one of the values of the dice on my board to bring them up to the numbers that I need or change them to the numbers I need, even if someone does hate draft the dice away from you.
Yeah. And that's one of the things in the game I tended to forget. I'd see somebody else do it halfway through the game. Like, oh, man, yeah, I can do that. I can discard some of these cards I've been holding that I really haven't been able to do anything with and maybe roll a die up, hit that magic 13 or something like that.
Right.
So
it definitely seems like the game is designed well to the point where if somebody does something to block you from doing things, there is another route
alternative
to get there.
way, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just to explain that mechanic, you can discard, for every card that you discard out of your hand, you can raise or lower the pip count on the die by 1 per card.
Right.
So
you do have to be careful with your discarding because your hand in the game tends not to be a large hand. You tend to only have one, maybe 2 or 3 cards in your hand at any point. At the end of every round, if I remember correctly, you just draw up 1 card.
Correct.
And so if you use all your cards, then you're kind of just drawing and hoping you get one of the good cards in your hand that you need to cycle through. So that's another little bit of the strategy.
But I think one of the little chits in the middle of the board allows you to draw 2 cards also.
Correct.
So, I mean, there's
There you
other,
go.
there's another route for you to get
But that's a blue action. And there's 2 blue dice, right? So we talked about
3. So
3. We
somebody
talked
gets
about
left out.
hate drafting the number.
Yeah.
No, we're hate drafting the color.
Yeah, 3
that
blue
last
dice
game,
go,
That last game, I controlled the first player marker until the final round because I knew if I had a better chance. I didn't end up winning the game, but I had a better chance being last player to go at the end of the final round.
Yep.
Because then I could play my bits better at that point.
And that's interesting. We can just touch on that real quick. That is another interesting concept in the game is that there is a space, as we mentioned before, that allows you to take, if you're the first one to do that, is the blue action.
Yes.
Then you can take the first player marker for the next round. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be the first player. Once you have that first player token, one of the steps of I don't know if it's the cleanup or the lead off of the next round, I think maybe the cleanup of the last round, you choose to either keep that first player to have the first selection, the first dice draft in the next round, or you can hand it off. And so the first thought may be, why would you ever hand that off? As Mike said, especially late in the game when you're vying for power on each of the islands, being able to go last and either assassinate someone else's governor or place a governor that gives you 2 power and bumps you up could be be the difference between finishing second or third and moving up to the first or second spot and picking up an extra 3 or 4 points and winning the game.
Absolutely.
What also comes into play with that is because that step takes place right before you purchase cards, heroes
Right,
from the
your
market,
heroes.
so you can use who you give that to let those cards shift down the way the market works.
True.
To maybe get something else that you want on there by giving it over here, waiting a turn, then maybe they buy a card and put some stuff out that you really want instead.
Yeah, because the market will reset as they're bought. So as soon as cards are bought, as soon as one is bought, another one comes in. You can do multiple buys if you have enough money. You can buy 2 or 3 cards from the market. But again, it does cycle continuously. So like Dan said, you can definitely, if there's something there you want, you keep that first player, you go get it. But if you don't, hey, maybe I give it to 2 people counterclockwise from me so I can see some cards mill through, and then maybe something will come up that I like.
Yeah.
So.
And you get to see what's on deck, the next card coming out. So you may want to hand it to like one person next to you, and you can see, well, they only can buy one hero if they're going to buy it. And you can take that chance of handing it off to the next person.
Options. So many
There's
choices.
a lot of options.
A lot of things to think about.
A lot of strategy, definitely.
Going last, though, that was big for me. I went last a lot in the game that I won. And it was huge because
You
it
had
allowed
to mention
me,
that, didn't you?
I won.
the words "I won." I did win a lot. I did win that game, but I won it because I went last a lot. And what it allowed me to do with my clan and the hero I had purchased allowed me to move more governors around, and then to also drop my shadow. So I would drop my shadow. I would move the governors around, and I would look for islands where I can get second place, or maybe even first. And it really did swing that power, the power of the game.
Yep, absolutely.
So we had so let's talk about the shadow. There's only 3 shadow pawn. These are like little ninja meeples.
Yeah.
And they allow you to gain 1 influence on the island that you place them on.
Right.
But there's only 3 or 4 spots.
There's 3 spots.
3 spots per island.
And you can get some gold, too, if there's gold left.
And I like this because so each island has circles on them. Think of little shadow circles on each island, and they tell you what can go on those locations. So the governors have their designated circle locations. The shadow have their designated circle locations. For those 3 spots for the shadow, one of them gives like 2 gold, one gives like 1 gold,
and the last one gives no gold.
Right. It incentivizes you to be the first one to go stabby somebody.
On that particular island.
Right.
I like that. I'm like, why would someone want to turtle up? I would want to turtle up and maybe wait to the last minute to send out my ninjas. But, maybe I need some gold to get my rice wheel to turn around.
I was going to say, maybe you don't have enough rice by the time you're coming around to actually using them as well. There's that plan ahead strategy that you definitely have to take into effect.
Yeah, there's a lot of resource management late in the game. You got to make sure you have enough of whatever to do what you want to do.
Right.
And that's going to incentivize you to send a ninja.
Or assassinate orange. Orange is slightly in last place. Blue is tied with me, so sorry, Chester. Got to watch your back in this game. When you dish it out to somebody, you know you're going to take it back.
You see,
And we keep talking about decisions. Again, there's that decision. I can go to this island where I'm getting 2 power or knocking someone down 2 and getting 1 power may not be quite as important for me. But if I go there and I'm the only first one to go there, I get the 2 gold. Or I can go over here, which may play out for more points. But the only thing left over there is the 0 spot. So I get absolutely no gold for doing that. It's just one more decision point. What do I want to do? Do I want to be the first over here where it may not be as helpful? Or go over there and gobble up some gold and do that. So,
but those ninjas don't move. The shadow,
no.
once you place them, they're stuck. So
One-shot
you
deal.
have 3. So this really isn't a combat game where you're fighting and killing people off of islands. So you have to be very strategic in the use of those 3 shadow pieces you have.
Timing is important. Yep.
And if you're going last, that's huge.
Yep.
Yeah, it could definitely.
You decide who controls what islands, and there were islands that I changed the control of where I wasn't first player on it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I knew the guy ahead of me. I could knock him back enough where maybe Rob was going to be the first player on that island, and I got my 2 gold, so I don't have to worry about Dan coming up behind me with the points.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the shadow piece of it. What other mechanics or components of the game stood out for you?
For me, it was the set collection. I mean, because each island has 3 different pieces of the relic that you're trying to build. Relic is 4 pieces total. And again, you're also taking into account how much storage space you have, because each one of those pieces takes up a single storage space. But just the fact that you could, the randomization of it, as far as moving your scavenger to a specific island, you have 3 choices of which relic pieces that you want to take. And they're all laid out on the board previous to you moving. But the fact that you can pay to have those pieces moved to the black market, and then have, you know, the chance of 2 more pieces coming out, one possibly that you might need, or you can, because you can take those 3 actions in one move, you could intentionally move those pieces to the black market, bring new ones out. You could pick one up there and purchase from the black market, so you can actually build your relics faster per turn. So there's that strategy as well.
That one stood out for me because I was shocked when I first saw it happen, which was effectively we knew you were going after the black number 1 relic piece because you needed all 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of black to fill black.
Right.
And there's black number 1 sitting there, but you didn't pick it up, right? So instead, what you did is you chucked it to the black market to then refill the spot you needed. Oh, look, a 2 black showed up. So you buy the 2 black off of the new space. Then you go visit the black market and pick up the 1 black that you wanted.
And then you can move again because you get that second action. You can do it all over again. So it's like this mini engine without even building the engine quite yet. You know, if you think
you're
ahead,
milling the bag of tiles to try to find what you need.
But that gets a bit into advanced concepts. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Dan, but now we're talking a little advanced, because I'll tell you, the 2 times I played, most of that was lost on me. I saw you guys doing it. I was like, okay, yeah, that's a step beyond what I'm doing. I'm going to go grab the 1 black I can see over there, and I'm going to
blue
go
too?
there. I'm going to go over there. Blue 2.
Blue 2?
Don't rub it in. I'm sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that those actions aren't free. You have to spend. You have to plan. You have to have the resources. You have to have gold. If you're going to buy from the black market twice, you got to have 2 gold. If you're going to swap tiles out, you got to have a couple of metal or crystal or something. You have to plan for that too. Everything you have to plan for. You can't just be like, well, I'm just going to do this now. If you don't have the resources ahead of time and you go to do that, you can find yourself halfway through your action going, oh,
yeah,
I messed this up. And I did that a few times in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And I want to dovetail my one of the unique things, and it's not one of the major mechanics of the game, but just something I thought was a little elegant, something that I thought was kind of a neat touch that they did, was we've talked about the relics and the storage, and I don't know if we got into too much detail about it yet, but the storage, again, you've got a track on the side of your board that shows how many relics you can store at any one time. And so you can go and grab different combinations, different colors as you run across them, but you're going to run into a storage issue at some point. There's ways to bump that storage up to a maximum, I think, of 9. Okay, but after that, you start getting victory points if you take more and more storage. So you still get something for increasing, quote unquote, increasing the storage, but you can only hold 9. But the cool thing I thought they did is we've talked about the relics are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. So to complete the green set, I've got to get the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. But something really cool that I thought that they did is once you get that combination, you stack the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it still takes up a storage space in your inventory.
A single space.
But now it's only taking 1 space because you've kind of put them all together and built that relic, so it's kind of compacted down. And again, it's a little tiny touch, something that a lot of people would think, well, what's the difference there? But it's just kind of a cool way that, again, now you don't need a storage track on the side of your board that goes to 50. You can just go to 9, and it's a neat way of condensing it. It kind of keeps a control, keeps some clamps on people just running around and picking up every tile, every relic that they run across.
Right, you can't just pick up everything to try to hate on someone else.
Yeah, but I thought that was just a cool little touch.
And also just to touch on that as well, depending on the color of the relic that you assemble, you also get to put, I don't know exactly what the marker is called, but there's 3 areas on each island where each one has a descending value of influence from 3, 2 to 1.
Right.
So if you're the first one, you would also get 3 influence for making that particular relic on that island. But it's tied to the colors. So there's, again, I mean, there's just strategy on top of strategy.
If you're collecting the black relics, it will only give you power on the black island.
Right.
So you better have had some power on that island, or it means nothing.
Right.
Well, and also if other people are going for the same color, you know, you might as well change in my opinion, you might as well change up your strategy and go for another island that maybe you have a better chance of getting that 3 influence on that particular island. So
And quickly to throw it in, Carlos said it means nothing. Actually, it does mean a little tiny bit. There is at the very end of the game in the final game scoring.
Yeah,
there
that's
is
something
you
I
get
wanted to talk about.
a couple of points for each of the relics that you built.
The
So
relics are worth the most at the end of the
Yeah,
game.
because it's
most, okay.
exponential.
It goes up a lot for each one
Exponentially.
that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you build one, it's not that big. So if you build one, you better be building, as Carlos said, on one that's really going to help you power-wise in the game to help you win that island for those points. But if you can get 3 or 4 built,
I
you're
think I
going
had 4 last game.
Yeah, 4 is a pretty good amount. So
Yeah.
if you get 4 built, that's pretty good, and you're going to get a big point boost for that exponential third and fourth one. So
Yeah.
Let's talk about the end game scoring, which I really enjoyed in this game. You know, some of the things the things that I enjoyed about the end game scoring was that it felt like it rewarded me for a little bit of everything that I did.
It's like a point salad almost.
Right. Every token, every bit, bob, and piece that I
collected,
got, moved, placed, earned me something.
yeah.
Yep.
You know, so in some games, you only get points for very specific things, and it feels like, oh, well, I have the most gold. Why wouldn't that give me anything? In this game, you get a little bit for everything. Talk
Right.
about the end game scoring.
Yeah, I think you do actually get points for everything. 'Cause
Yeah, I
you
was-
get points for how many farms you built, how many radio towers you
Yeah.
built. You get points for how many relics you've built,
How many heroes you
how
purchase?
many heroes are in your army, how much gold you have left, combinations of resources that are left
Who controls
over.
the headphones?
Who controls the
Yeah,
first player
first player
marker?
marker.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to gain points at the end. So you can see those people that are behind all of a sudden, if they've been taking their time and building things, they can swing those points quite a bit there at the end of the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. And just to point, just to touch on this point, I think it's pretty balanced because if you're mostly going for building techno farms or radio towers, you just don't have the resources to or the ability to build those. My mind is going blank.
Relics?
Relics, thank you. So it's like you'd be able to build more buildings, but less relics that you could build. Or if you're going the other way, you could have the ability to get more relics, but you definitely wouldn't have the resources to build the number of buildings that you want. So the way that the points kind of, and again, it's exponentially, they increase the more you have done. It really does balance out the game, and it gives you options throughout the game. Even if you need to change your strategy up a little bit, if you can catch it early enough, I think you would have enough time to, well, all right, I don't think I'm going to win this way, or I'm not getting the resources that I want because somebody keeps knocking me out with their shadows, and you're not, collecting resources. You can swing it another way where you would be able to work what you have in your hand to your advantage.
Yeah, I think they did a real good job with the mechanic when you're building techno farms and radio towers that the price keeps going up with those surcharges.
Yep.
So you're going to be burning more metal, more crystal,
Yeah.
where you won't have it to do that with all the scavenging. You're not going to have all those extra resources, maybe until the last round, but if you wait till the last round,
Right.
Could be too
But
late.
too late.
you might be able to build one relic, but you're not going to pile up 4 of them in the last round.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that last game we played, I definitely was trying to get buildings out. I saw that was the way Carlos won before, and I assume here at the end we'll go around and talk about some things we didn't like or maybe some weaknesses of the game. So not to get too ahead of that conversation, but that's one thing that, again, I've only played it twice, but the 2 games I've played, I have seen that getting those techno farms, getting those towers out on the board seem to be pretty important. So,
Yeah, definitely.
I felt the scoring system in this game helped to reduce the negative player experience.
Yeah.
Right, because there are many games where the player can be doing things and then find out at the end of the game they didn't get anything for it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. As long
It
as
may
you're
not be
doing
the
something.
most optimal thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to win you the game,
Right.
but at least you still got something. Hey, I got the most rice. Hey, you get a point for each token of rice. You didn't win, but you got something.
Yeah, as long as
That's
you're
a
doing
positive
something.
play
Yeah, as long as you're doing
experience.
something, you're getting some points. So, yeah.
Right. So we'll go on final notes. Talk about either something that you want to see improve, change, or different, or just hype up the piece you love the most.
Well, before we talk about that, some of the things that I got from the manufacturer, from the creator, that the player boards are going to be double layer boards.
Oh, good.
So Those are going to be a lot nicer than what we played with. All those stand-in tokens are going to actually be shaped like farms, be shaped like radio towers.
It's all pre-production
Right.
components.
Yeah,
that we
all
had.
the governors and shadows, and are going to have actual miniatures and things like that are going to be part of the game too. So it's going to look a lot different. So as we're putting in footage during the time we're
and
talking
you can watch
about
the
this,
last video where we played it.
Right. So anybody that's watching that, I'm sure they'll see it on the Kickstarter too. But if they're listening to this, they should know that what we played was a pre-production copy.
And that's what's just, I guess, dovetailing back to then where you were going. It was weaknesses with the game, and I personally found that to be one of my biggest weaknesses. The 2 plays that I've had, I have found the card aspect of it and the hand management to be a bit of a side thought for me. I mean, occasionally when I looked at that market at the end of the round and could go and buy cards, I never really found myself looking ahead and thinking, ooh, I need to get that card. I need to do that for my strategy. I kind of, as an afterthought at the end when it came time to buy cards, oh yeah, we're going to buy cards, and I'd get up and I'd go look at the market and take a close look and see, oh, okay, that one kind of fits into what I'm doing.
See, I disagree with you on this one.
Really? Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. See, I didn't. Yeah, when we played, I almost never took that tact. I almost never.
I agree with you. I didn't do it either, but I also left a little jealous in watching how the other players were using it.
Sure.
I'm watching other players discard. They're buying cheat cards, right? Not for their actions, but for their discard to be able to change dice to be able to trigger that one powerful card or the 13. Right. And then I'm watching other players using them for their actions, and I'm like, wait a minute, you did what?
Yep.
Oh, I thought you could only do that, but then you're dropping these cards and hitting these special actions, which are changing the state of the board.
Yep, and again, the one asymmetric power with the one clan
Yeah.
where you can play a card for free.
Yeah, that would be big for there. Yeah.
That definitely pushes you more towards the buying hero card aspect of the game.
Which
And I haven't
so it
played
could
that
be that
clan.
your
Right.
faction,
I haven't
your,
played that
your
one.
clan,
I played 2 of them. I haven't
your
played them.
house
Yeah.
Yep.
just didn't lean to that. And then I'm watching other people's strategy, setup, whatever, like execute on that, and I'm like, what game am I playing? I don't even know what I'm playing here.
Yeah,
You have relics, I have none.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that you're saying, that aspect of it was something that I was paying a lot of attention to, because whatever clan I was playing, I'd say, okay, what cards over there are going to work with what I have? Because I had that clan in the last game, and I would say, oh, that card's going to let me draw 2 cards from my hand, and that card's going to let me, put my discard pile into my hand, so I could get everything out and go, okay, I can play that one for free. And
Right.
so, I mean,
Yep.
I really enjoyed the aspect and did pay attention a lot to that in the beginning.
Yep.
I didn't pay as much attention to relic building when I first started playing, which is something that you have to do also. So, but
Right.
that's what you learn with repeated plays.
Sure. Yeah.
I really do believe my win was dedicated to one special card. It was one card that I drafted early on, which allowed me to, I believe it was move 2 governors off that one card, but it required at least 2 dice, high number dice, for me to be able to trigger that card.
Right.
And in that last round, I knew
You
I had to
shifted.
draw, and it was in the discard pile, and I had to reshuffle my discards, and I was just praying, I need this card. If I get this card, I have this game.
And then you looked at the bottom, you just moved it to the top of the deck.
You saw that? Cheating on stream, man. That's an award. If you can cheat on stream, that's an award.
Also, just wanted to bring up that is the second time he mentioned the game that he won.
Yes.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I learned from the best.
Yeah.
Well, when you're 100% all the time.
Yeah. You always win. Yeah.
Absolutely. You always bring it up when you win 100%.
No, it's,
One for one.
I mean, my last note on the game is I have trouble with picking up new, heavier games and learning them because I feel like I struggle with them and been keeping up, and I really expected that. I came in trying to be just, I'll just play along with the guys and provide my feelings. But at the end of it, I was like, that was so much easier to learn than I expected. And that's my takeaway from it was, although, Rob, how do you say the company's name? I don't want to
Le
butcher.
Boîte de Jeu.
Although they say that this is their heaviest game they've ever created, I still feel if you're just an average, decent gamer playing out there in the Scythe world,
Or even a newer one.
right, you can pick this up.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid by the heavy title of it. That's my takeaway from
Yep.
it. What's your takeaway, Mike?
Just a quick run through the pros and cons is I love that there's so many different strategies that you can take with this game, and it's strategy on top of strategy on top of strategy, and there's the 3 or 4 games that I played, there wasn't a runaway game. There's always some kind of, not necessarily a catch-up mechanism, but the balance of the game prevents runaways from happening if you are more of an experienced player. I would consider the game slightly more than like a mid-weight game.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, even though there are a lot of things going on, you are still getting something for everything that you do. And as long as you make somewhat of a smart decision, you're not going to get blown out of the water in this game. If I had any negative, it's also kind of a positive, depending on what kind of player you are. There's just so many options. Like the first game I played, I was almost like, I don't even know what kind of strategy I want to take with this game. Where some games, there might be a few different strategies that you can go, and you're like, okay, I'm going to try this one. The first game I played, I think I was midway through the game, and I was just, my brain was kind of all over the place thinking, which strategy am I going to take now? And then I would forget what I originally started with, and then I would try and take another strategy. But again, by the second or third game, you kind of narrow in, especially with the asymmetric power, like you said, it kind of sets up the game for you almost to like they're nudging you down a certain path that you should be taking with this particular clan. But, I mean, to me, it was way more positives than cons with this game. And I would play this game pretty much anytime anybody wanted to.
Yeah, let me jump in a little bit. I haven't played it yet with an AP player, although Carlos will tell you that I'm an AP player.
I thought you were an AP player.
Sometimes I am, yeah. So analysis paralysis for those of you who don't know the acronym there. But I do fear that if we played it with an AP player, maybe a particular one or two from our group, that it could bog down. And that was, I didn't mention, I don't know officially if I've gone yet, but I don't want to jump out of line here, Dan. But as far as length of play, that was one other thing that I've only played it twice, but the advertised length of play on the box, I believe, is at 60 to 90 minutes,
right.
Somewhere in that range.
90,
about 2 hours.
About 90 minutes.
That was
is what
about
they're
90 minutes.
claiming
Okay,
on the box.
I was going to say 2 to 2.5 hours seems to be our experience. Although both times I've played it, we have taught at least one new player each time, so it's always going to run a little long. So I think after you know it, 60 to 90 minutes is probably.
I would say that's fair.
Yeah, is pretty fair.
Even maxed out player wise.
But again, with the AP part of it, that possibility, again, I fear playing it with one or two people from our game group just because I fear it could drag to a 2 to 3 hour game.
But I got to stand on this point, and this might be hurtful, but I'm just going to say it. That's not the fault of the game. That's the fault of the player in the group.
Sure, right.
And as a group,
That could be with
we
any
got to
game.
hold those
Yeah.
people accountable.
Yeah.
And I'm the guy that I got a 2-minute timer on my watch, and it beeps out loud. And if I feel that someone is just taking too long, I start hitting that 2-minute timer to say, "Hey, look, bub, it's just going too long," because that player is killing the experience for all of us.
Well, and for some of, as we know, for some people that is effective. Some people it's not. So.
And then that person you just don't invite to the next game.
Wow. Okay, Dan.
Yeah.
On that note,
And that's why you bring players like me in who are just ready to just wreak
go.
total chaos on the game and just say, I'm going to do this no matter what happens.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it quick
Yeah.
because I just like to try different things out and see what happens. I'm kind of like you, like, I'm not going to win, but I'm going to have fun and try all these different mechanics out and maybe get a strategy for later on. I have no problem doing that because if I don't win, I'm okay with that.
yeah.
And like you said, newer players can play this game.
Yeah.
I taught it to several people that were into what you would consider like light to light medium type games up to this point, and it took a little bit of time to walk them through the mechanics, but once they got going, they knew it and they enjoyed it and they wanted to play it again. So that's not a problem. So again, right, don't be scared by
Right.
all the different mechanics in it. You'll learn them.
Yeah.
You should have seen me and Mike when we first cracked it open. We played a 2-player game to learn it and learning the rules, and it's not a big rule book.
Nope.
Yeah.
And even though all these mechanics were flying out for like exactly what he said, what do I do?
Yeah.
What route do I take? So we just started doing things. And then
Yes.
after a couple of rounds, you're like, oh, okay, I see how all this works together, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And as far as pros and cons, I'm not that type of person. I boil it down simply, would I play it again? Because I play a lot of games that I'm like, that was all right. I'm really not in a hurry to get that back. I would play this again.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Same.
I think we all did, and I know Chester, well, after he played it the first time on stream, I believe we cut it on stream. He
Yep.
said,
Yes.
now I know how to play it. I want to play it again.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
It's definitely, I haven't talked to anybody that I taught it to either they all said that too. Like, yeah, we want to come play that again. We hope you get a copy at the store.
And I think it definitely is one of those games that if you know how to play, you will win 99% of the time against somebody who doesn't know how to play. And so
Against somebody that doesn't know how to play, yes.
Right. And so that has to do with strategy. That has to do with knowing how the game works.
Yeah.
And so that's again not a weakness of the game. And I like mini games particularly for that reason, that you can kind of learn the game and you can kind of learn the ins and outs and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. I think that's actually what my mark of a pretty good hobby type game. But that's something
Easy to learn, hard to master.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think Carlos's point is really important there, that yes, that experienced player is going to beat people that start new, but you feel like you still did something
Right.
because you're getting points and you're creating something
Yep.
through the game that makes you go, oh, I can do this better next time. I can do that. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
And just one more thing to chime in is once you learn the symbology, I think we might have touched on this
Yeah.
earlier. Once you learn the symbology, it all makes perfect sense. And very rarely, except for the final point scoring, very rarely did we ever reference the rule book to say, like, what does this do
absolutely.
again?
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, once we learned that, it was just really end of game scoring.
Yep.
That was it. Even end of round scoring is on the player board.
Right. It's all very straightforward.
And it's also so a comment came on in the BGG on our video that we posted of the playthrough with regards to the board being cluttered and hard to understand. And my response back was, I felt the complete opposite of it. Although the board is beautiful and there's a lot going on the board,
There's a lot,
The
yeah.
way they put the rings on there for each space, and then the symbol that's adjacent to each ring,
Right.
it was so easy to immediately understand the situation on this island.
Yep.
I think we said that when we first opened it. When
Yeah.
we were first starting to learn, we looked at the board and we go, wow, there's a lot going on.
It
here.
looks busy,
It
yeah.
looks busy. But then once we started playing,
Yeah,
And
there's
you're
a
like,
shadow face,
oh, this
and
makes
there's the
sense.
gold symbols. That's
Yeah.
what he gets for placing a shadow there, and there's a governor spot.
And also, these are pre-production pieces. So the pieces, I will admit, with pre-production pieces, you would look at the board as a whole, and you're kind of like, I don't even know where anything is, But once production pieces come out, like you said, with minis and shapes, specific
it'll be
shapes,
easy to see things,
It's
yeah.
like going to be a lot more easier.
But they're doing
to
two
see.
levels on this one. There's from what I understand, they're going to have a lower level with the wooden pieces, which I got to say, you call this pre-production, but I love those little ninja meeples, the little scavenger meeple with his little backpack on him and his little ballpark hat. And then you've got the governors. They were so easy to tell apart. The radio towers were cylinders. The farmhouses, you said earlier today, you said, oh, they're going to make farms that look more like farms. It looked like a farm to me. It looked like a barn.
that's what I mean. It's going to be a little more detailed, the wooden
Right.
piece. And then the radio tower will be shaped more like a radio
Right.
tower.
Someone like
Exactly.
me who feels
Cylinder.
that the Kickstarter games can get very pricey because they can get so detailed in the components, right? You can go as far as the tapestry-style buildings. I found this setup as it was to be perfectly playable. Perfectly
I
acceptable.
definitely thought it was. Yeah.
So what you see on the board, I know, and you talked about the dual layer player mats. I don't think we even had a problem in any game with our pieces on the player mats.
We didn't, but man, what I love
yeah.
dual layer
Yeah,
mats
yeah,
because
yeah.
it just holds everything
Right. I
in
was going
place.
to say nobody bumped the table while we played, but we had to be a little careful.
I mean, it wasn't like Terraforming Mars level of QB slidiness.
Not quite.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No.
me and Rob just recently played a game of smartphone, and to be able to take those things out and click them into that double layer
Oh,
board,
so
man.
satisfying.
man, it is nice.
It is.
Maybe I'm missing.
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, and folks, that's our impressions of Daimyo, Rebirth of the Empire by...
La Boîte de Jus.
That's my buddy. We are the Beans and Dice podcast. I know I keep forgetting to say it. You have no idea how important it is to us and how much it helps if you just like and subscribe.
Yep.
Let us know what you saw if you liked it. Subscribe, hit the bell so you see more videos. We're really just wanting to share how we game. The group of gamers that we have, the diverse group of gamers, to share them with you. So please continue to support. My name is Carlos Rafael,
Michael Lorenzo.
Daniel Erdzik.
Rob Childers.
and we are the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about
How
we game.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
See you on the next one, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.